Hello and welcome to the video by TrumpExcel. I'm Sumit Bansal, and in this video I'm going to show you how to quickly unpivot data using Power Query. Here I have a report, and this is the kind of report you get as an output of a pivot table. So I have the region here and I have the month here and I have the total sale value. Now the problem with this is that if I want to further analyze this data, for example, if I want to know the total sales by region or total sales by months or total sales by quarters, then I will have to do further calculation and I would have to maybe use formulas or VBA to do this. But if I have a pivot table of this data, I can quickly drag and drop and create that part. But because I do not have the pivot ready data for this, I cannot create a pivot table. So what we are going to do is we are going to convert this data format into a pivot ready format. So to do that, I would click anywhere in this data, go to the data tab, click on from table range. When I click on it, it forces me to convert this into an Excel table because Power Query can only use a table or a named range. So when I click OK, this becomes a table and it opens the query editor. Now here I have the same data and I want to unpivot this data. Now there are three options to unpivot data in Power Query. So let's say I have selected the region column, I right click, and here I have three options: unpivot columns, unpivot other columns, and unpivot only selected columns. Now let's first talk about these two options. These two options are exactly the same. They do the exact same thing. It's just that how you select the data is different. So for example, if I want to unpivot these columns where I have month value, I would come here, I would select region and I would go and say unpivot other columns, which means unpivot all the other columns which are these month columns. Do not change the region, change everything else. Or I can select these columns, right click and click on unpivot columns. Now let me show you why these are exactly the same. I select the region column and I go to unpivot other columns. Instantly it changes the data and gives me the pivot ready format, which is amazing, an amazing thing Power Query does. And have a look at this formula. It says table.unpivot other columns. This is the name of the formula. Changed type. This is the name of the previous step. A region, which is except region and pivot every other column. Attribute is the name of the column, new column, and value is the name of the other column. Now let me delete this step, and instead of selecting this and right clicking and going to unpivot other column, let me do the other thing. I select all these columns that I want to unpivot, right click and go to unpivot columns, and when I click on this, it gives me again the same data. And have a look at the formula. It's exactly the same formula. There is absolutely no change, which means that when you select these columns and when you right click and go to unpivot columns, it actually understands this as unpivot every column except the one that are selected. So it still does the same thing. It identifies the columns that are not selected, which is region, and it unpivots every other column. So these two steps are essentially the same, but there's a problem with these two steps. So in most of the cases this would work, but let's say I use this option, unpivot other columns. I get this data and I load this data. So this would insert a worksheet and I would have the unpivoted data here, and I can easily create a pivot table out of it. So if I go to insert pivot table, I have this pivot table, and if I want total sales by region, I get this instantly. Or if I wanted total sales by, let's say, month, I quickly get this. Now let's delete this pivot table because this is not what I really want to show you. What I want to show you is, now if I go back to the original data and I change this data by inserting a column here. So let's say I insert a column called code, region code, and I type MW Northeast, S for South, and W for West. What I've done here is I don't want these two to get unpivoted. I only want this entire data to get unpivoted because these two are related to each other and these two are unique and connected to each other. It's just that, let's say my manager wanted the code to be there. But if I go to sheet 2 and here I right click and I refresh this data, my data gets messed up. And let's get into Power Query to see why this happens. So here in Power Query, when I right click, when I run this query and I update this query, what this does is it still considers region as the column that shouldn't be unpivoted, and it unpivots every other column, including the code column. But this is not what I want. In the second instance, where I selected these columns and I created a query where I selected these columns and I right clicked and I said unpivot columns, it still understood as the region column should not be unpivoted, everything else should be unpivoted. So when I insert a new column, it gets messed up. And that is why the Microsoft team has given you a third option, which is unpivot only selected columns, which means that now no matter if you insert more rows or not, it would only consider these columns. So let me close this. Let me go back here. Let me delete this so that I can show you from scratch. Let me also delete this table. And now let's start by going to data from table. It opens in Power Query, and this time I would use the third option. So I have selected all these months. I right click, go to unpivot only selected columns, and this time it would only unpivot these columns. It would not refer to region or any other column. So see what happens. It unpivots these columns. I close and load. It gets inserted here. Now I go back to sheet 1. I insert a new column here called, let's say, codes, and I type the codes. And when I go back and I right click and click on refresh, the data doesn't get messed up. I have the right data. I have the region and the code tagged to each other, and I have these columns that are truly unpivoted. So this is a great way when you want to insert something and you have to make sure that those columns don't get unpivoted. Then you can use the third option, which is unpivot only the selected column. So this is how you can quickly unpivot data in Power Query. That's it in this video. I hope you found this useful. Thank you and have a nice day.